Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. James Ramsden here from PetPack. I am setting up the screen while people sign in, which is great. Got people coming from all over the country tonight, which is really good. Thanks for joining me. All right, so for those of you who haven't joined the webinar before, haven't been along for a while, welcome any questions. So type your questions away. There's a little screen, you can type your questions in there. It'll be really good to see those. And let's see if we can just get, just make sure you can hear okay. Can someone just type in a message saying they can hear? That'd be great. Before we get started, thank you. And also we'll be recording this and the recording will be sent out, so you'll have a copy of that, which is great. And all right, can everyone hear okay? Just type a note in, that would be fantastic that you can hear all right. So the way we run the webinars is that we don't do live discussion because there's a lot of feedback on the system, so we do it one at a time. And so type your questions in. I encourage any questions. The whole purpose of this webinar tonight is to discuss problems that you have, and I'm going to cover off the top issues that we see, which I think will be useful for people. And I haven't had a note from someone, so that should be fine. Thank you. I'm just going to send a quick note in here. All right, so interesting topic. We've got a lot of responses tonight of people joining us. This topic came up because of our recent presence at vet conferences, AVAPM and AVBA, particularly where, and ASAVA, where I was there with my team. One of the things that came up was how many problems that we solve for people and how that's a real issue. So let's get started into it right away. And I'm just checking that there's not a tech issue for some of you guys. I haven't heard back. About whether you can hear this. Let me just check that. This will just take a moment. I'm just going to say, Dale, can you just type a note that you can hear okay if you can, please? Okay, that's great. Thank you. Beauty. Thanks, guys. All right. If you've got a question, type it in. Let's get stuck into it. It'll be great. So for those of you who don't know me, there's a few of you here tonight. James Ramsden is my name. PetPack is the company. We are veterinary marketing experts, and we specialise in online websites, online presence, email newsletters, and Facebook. We provide that service to vets in Australia and New Zealand, and we have done for 14 years in one form or other. So we started off with an email newsletter service that was pretty rudimentary back in 2001. It's actually 15 years now, and that's evolved significantly. And we're doing a webinar tonight. We do a webinar every month, except when we have conferences on. This one is actually about online marketing. It's complicated, and we're here to help. And one of the big things about PetPack is that our front desk guys, customer interfacing guys, who you will have met at conferences if you've come up to our stand, are excellent. They're probably the best online marketing support guys in the industry for vets, in that they are highly intelligent, technical people, but they've also got a very good ability to, and interest in talking to you guys. And you guys sometimes are people who have expertise in other areas, not in online marketing, so there needs to be a translation of the issue. So we go from having a problem that you find it's bothering you, but you're not quite sure what's going on, to an analysis by our guys about what's going on, and then an interpretation of what it actually is, and then how to fix it. And our two guys that you tend to see at conferences are just some of the people on the front desk. And then if those guys can't answer the problem straight away, or we need a fix done, then it gets passed to our developers who sit behind them, and they don't tend to interface with the veterinary industry, but they're the ones who build the systems and run it. Okay, so here's the agenda for tonight. And by the way, it's 8:05. We will finish at 8:30 or about that time. So if anyone has questions beyond that, happy to stay back and talk about them. But this will just give you a nice, concise webinar for tonight. And before I start, I would like to say I'm exhausted today. I think it's because last week we had a very big announcement, which was the merger of the AVAPM and AVBA, which I've been involved in as president of AVAPM. And I'm very excited about that. So I know a lot of you here tonight are involved in either of those, the two groups. So really looking forward to a whole range of new products and services from that group, and more tailored to our members' needs than we've had in the past. So that was just on my mind, just wanted to mention it. So today we're going to cover online marketing is complicated, why is it so complicated, and then the 5 top issues that you will probably come across. And these are based on the questions that we get from our clients or people who we meet in the industry. So one is domains, and by that I mean domain names. Second, how is my website performing? Front desk conversions, which is how do you convert those calls that are coming into appointments. Facebook, and then finally content, what is it? And you might be thinking, what is it? Because it's not something that we're brought up on as vets content, but it's a really important part of your online marketing. I'm going to cover these areas, and then we're going to have a discussion if anyone has any particular things that come up. All right, so first one is domains. So anyone tell me why a domain name, so www.petpack.com.au or www.malvernvet.com.au is important? Just type your questions, type your comments away, that'd be fantastic. Let me know what you think, why they're important. Then we're going to discuss common problems managing a domain. Talk about the experts required when you're managing domain issues, and then talk about the areas that we can help with. So up to why a domain is important. Well, there's a few reasons why a domain name is important. The most important one is that Google builds a relationship with the domain name. So if you think about one of the key things that you want is that you want your website to appear first or near the top of a search. It's only going to do that if Google has a relationship with that domain name, which is you. And of all the things we talk about tonight, I think it's probably the most important long-term consideration when you're thinking about your website is making sure Google has a good relationship with that domain. And like a friendship, it's something which you build over time and you must continue to nurture, otherwise it will go stale. You can do a lot of work on your domain name and then not do work for a while, and it will still maintain some relevance. But to really start to make a difference to finding new clients, you need that domain name to be consistently connecting with Google. So the way we do that is we encourage people to set up their website correctly, and then also to add relevant content on a regular basis. And tonight's not the night to talk about how to do that, but what I wanted to say was domain issues are probably some of the most significant issues we have when people run into trouble with their websites. Some of the common problems we have when managing a domain are you'll be chuffing along really well for 5 years with your website and your domain name, and suddenly it will expire, and the person in the clinic who's looking after that domain name might have left, and you can't actually find the information, or you never receive the renewal notice about that domain name. And we've had numerous clinics where this has happened, where the clinic is looking after the registration and hosting of the domain, and it's expired, and they've actually lost the domain, and they've had to go through a laborious process of trying to regain that, which is a risky process because someone else could register it in the meantime. So, and of course, while that happens, your website goes down and you start to lose all the good work you built up with Google. So, number one take-home message here is to make sure your domain registration is looked after by someone who knows what they're doing. When, in our case, when we work with practices, we almost insist, it's close to, there's have to be a very good reason not to actually host the domain ourselves. And what that means is that we take responsibility for renewing it and making sure it's working properly. And because we are experts in that area, it works smoothly. Some of the questions you might have about that, which are significant, are, well, if you're managing the domain, James, then does that mean you own it? And the answer is no. So what you would do is you buy the domain, or we buy it on your behalf. So it's registered under your name, and then we look after it. We're the managers of that. And so if you decide not to use PetPack, or let's say you're using PetPack, you decide not to use PetPack because, and we do have the domain, then we transfer that domain to another place for you. The really important thing about domain names is that it's your property, and under Australian rules for domains, particularly with .com.au names, you need to have a reasonable good reason to have that domain name. So it saves, restricts people from setting up false websites that purport to be vet clinics down the road when they're not actually there. And that's why we encourage people to use the .com.au domain names. There's quite a few practices out there who are using .com. So the question for you is, if you're a consumer and you're looking for a vet in your area and you see a domain name that has the word .com on it, and then you see another one that has the word .com.au, which one do you think will be more local? And of course it's the .com.au. So there are almost no reasons why you would use .com. A lot of clinics have got .com from historical reasons. When a long time ago, we didn't realise the significance of domains or how you structure them. So if you do have a .com domain and you've been using it for a long time, you can still use it, but what we suggest you do is then make your primary domain, the one that is exposed to Google and that the punters will see, is .com.au. Of course, that's not to say you can't use other .au domains, but you should be able to get, for most vet practices in Australia, .com.au, because you're a business and you've got a registered place of operation and you're a legitimate operation. So in terms of the sorts of things that we can do to help, is we can actually help select domains. So if you're looking for a new domain, this happens when people set up new practices, then we'll make some recommendations about a good domain to use. We will register for you, we'll host it, which means we actually ensure that it's live and running, and that's where we do the connect it to your website. And we manage it, so we'll have multiple domains, or we'll do various things. We'll make sure that other services that relate to the domain, like your email, for instance, is hanging off that domain correctly. And I think the final thing I'd say about domains is that Google will build a relationship with the domain name. So it's not the website that hangs underneath the domain name that Google has the connection with it, it's actually the domain name. And you can actually change your domain name over time. You just need to go through a specific process with Google where you tell Google you're changing the domain name so it understands that you're still the same person, and it will then transfer the trust that's been generated from that one domain to the next one. Okay, any questions on that? That's all good. Okay. Thank you. Back to that. All right. Second issue is, how is my website performing? And I think it's important to establish that these questions that we get from vets and practice managers will be around whether it's whether the website is working on mobile phones, for instance, which is a very important one, or whether or not it actually looks any good. In terms of the ultimate reason for websites and their performance, the question is really about how many phone calls that website's generating. So from our perspective, if you're going to invest money in an online marketing platform, so might be a website, might be Census, might be some other service, or one of the Google products, we want to understand how effective is that money being spent to generate new business, or phone calls particularly. So I've got a little diagram here I want to show you before we go into a bit of detail of what it is. So the most important things you need to consider when you're looking at your website performance is, one, traffic, which is how many people visit your website on a monthly basis, and you find that information by looking in Google Analytics. Now, I'm not going to look at Google Analytics tonight, but Google Analytics is an important tool for measuring your performance. And a lot of practices have got it on their websites, they just don't look at it. And the only bit of information you need to look at for performance assessments, certainly at a high level, is traffic, or it's called users in analytics, and that means unique visitors to your website on a monthly basis. The typical Australian vet practice has about 500 users a month coming to their website, and the top performers have about 2,000. And that's, when I say 2,000, that'll be practices that are considered the normal size, small animal practices that are high performing. So that just shows you how much of an improvement you can make to the amount of traffic coming into your website. So of course, the more traffic you have, the more likely you're going to get phone calls. But it's not the only determinant. The next one is your website. And the website will influence whether or not someone calls you. You may not be aware of how many people, what percentage of people that visit your website call, but for the average vet clinic in Australia, it's about 10%. So that means 90% of people that visit leave without actually doing the job that you want them to do, which is to call and make an appointment. And of course, that's not including email or online booking traffic, but that portion of business generated from websites is minuscule currently. So we're really focusing at the moment on phone calls. You want to get those people on the phone because your whole business is geared up almost exclusively to taking calls and booking those appointments. And of course, the third area is getting those phone calls. And what we're really interested to know is how many phone calls are generated from that website. So I've got a little graph or table that I use here, which is the summary of the most important things about website performance. So when someone says, "Oh, how's my website performing?" I use this as a guideline. Let's start at the top. So we've talked about traffic, we've talked about website, we've talked about calls. Now I'm going to put some numbers into it. So for the average vet practice, they'll be getting about 500 visitors a month. Well, imagine if you could get up to 1,000. It's not unreasonable to get up to 1,000 if you do the right work on your website. And that's a nice little benchmark target for you to think about. Then on the website, there's this thing called conversion, which is how many people or what percentage of these people that visit actually call. And I said before, the average clinic's doing about 10% conversion. So if you've got 1,000 visitors coming to your website, but you've got a pretty average conversion capacity on your website, you'll get 100 calls. Now, what's average conversion? Well, average conversion is a website that doesn't have a strong reason for a consumer or a punter to ring you. And that would apply to most vet practice websites in Australia. And the reason for that is because they haven't done the work. Someone who is who's running the website is not a online marketing expert, hasn't done the work on the website to put content on there that makes people call. So generally what you'll find with clinics, with most of you guys with your websites, the content on the front page have been written by the practice, and we'll talk about what the practice does. And when you do the analysis or testing of what percentage of people convert on those websites, is about 10%. And the 10% that ring probably weren't influenced by that content anyway, they just knew they needed to call you. If you make specific investments in the way that front page is structured and you test and measure it, and that's what we've done at Petpack, you can actually improve that. And we've been able to improve it to 20% or double that conversion. So if you've got those 1,000 visitors a month coming in, then that'll generate 200 calls. So you immediately can double your calls by improving your conversion. It's really important to understand that. And the reason I'm going on about that is because when someone asks us, which is one of the top issues, how's my website performing, they're not often thinking about these issues. They might be thinking about whether or not, for instance, it works well on a mobile phone. And working on a mobile phone, who can tell me which area it's going to influence? If you make your website work well on a mobile phone, is it going to influence traffic? Is it going to influence traffic? Or is it going to influence conversion, or is it going to influence phone calls? And that's right. Yeah, good point. So it's actually all three. And the reason for that, so when someone says, oh, I want my website to work well on a mobile phone, that's actually spot on. Because about 80%, according to Google, of all local searches are now done, for local business, are done on phones, Google is looking very carefully at how websites perform on mobile phones. So if your website doesn't work well on a mobile phone, which means it's not built to handle mobile phone screens, Google will penalize that website, or it certainly won't elevate you in the search results. You get less business. So first of all, with a mobile responsive, we call it responsive website, you'll get more traffic. Secondly, when they come to the website, because the way the website's structured and the phone on the mobile phone, the phone option or icon is very clear and you can actually click it and ring, you're going to get a higher conversion. You're going to get more people calling you. And then if your website's set up correctly, you'll be able to track those calls so you know how many calls are coming off there. Now, if we look at this flow from traffic to website to calls, there are two areas which will influence this in addition. The first one is AdWords. Now, when I talk about investing in other areas online, the two most important ones are both Google products. I mentioned Census earlier, but third-party directories and services like that are not significant or not cost-efficient, whereas AdWords, which is Google's own paid advertising service, is cost-effective and efficient if it's set up correctly. So in our experience, running this across Australia and New Zealand, you will get an extra 150 visitors a month, sometimes up to 200 visitors a month by running AdWords. So it's not a massive increase, but it's a very good way for clinics to target surrounding suburbs, for instance, where their website might not be appearing. So we strongly advocate that if it's run correctly. And then the second area is down here, is called GMB, or Google My Business. Now, Google My Business, which we've talked about before, is the new directory service by Google, and it's being put up in front of consumers' faces at about half the time, or just under half the time. Set up correctly, that'll generate 100 calls at least. So it's a very significant area, and we do this for practices, and we don't get a lot of questions about Google My Business because most practices aren't aware that it's there or the power of it. But I strongly recommend you do ask questions about that because it'll make a big difference to your business. Moving along. So just summarising what we've talked about, your site can be a business driver. So, for instance, you can double your phone calls if you change the way the front page of the website operates, or you make sure it's mobile responsive, or you add Google My Business. And measuring this is the first step. A lot of you are not measuring, unless you're Petpack clients. The people are not measuring, one, how many people are coming into the website on a monthly basis, then how many calls are coming off the other side. And you really need to do that before you have any idea of whether or not how your website's performing. We've talked about traffic in and traffic out, which is phone calls, and then how we can help. Well, the way we help is we can advise you about how to improve your own website, and we obviously provide top performing websites. Our websites will produce 2 to 4 times the phone calls of the average vet clinic website. So, by the way, on those topics, you can call us at any stage and ask us any questions. We're happy to take those calls. So the next one, which we get a lot of calls about or questions about, which vets are, and when I say vets, I mean practice managers, vets, team members, anyone who's interested in managing the practice, are particularly concerned about is whether they're missing any calls at the front desk, if we're missing business. We get more calls about this than we do about the performance of the actual website. So, am I missing any calls? Well, we can tell you from our research you're missing 10%. And that's, if you look at the UK data, it's more like 20%. So, our research data in Australia is not extensive, so it might be more like 20%, but you'll be missing calls. If you haven't done the work, you'll be missing calls. So, it's a really, really great opportunity to get stuck into it straight away and make some more improvements. How many new client calls do I get? The way people generally record this is they just record it on a bit of paper. What you can do is you can put a tracking phone number onto your website, which we do for practices, which will record the audio of all the calls, and you can determine, and also the source phone numbers, you can determine which actual new client calls there were and when they came in. So that's a very useful part of understanding your front desk conversion. What can I do to improve front desk conversions? Well, there's a few things you can do. First of all, you can start measuring. First of all, start measuring how many calls are coming in. Look at how many new client calls you have, and then how many appointments did you make with new clients and existing clients, and you will see I almost guarantee you'll be missing 10% of your calls. Then to improve those front desk conversions, what clinics have done is actually do training. But the first step is to understand what the problem is. Now, we don't do analysis of the front desk performance. We do the call tracking, which provides the information that the training people can use. And I would recommend also, if you're interested in getting an assessment of how your front desk conversion's working, is I know there's a new service from United Vets Group, and they call it reception call analysis. So from the initial feedback I've had from people who've used this, has been very successful. So what they'll do is they'll assess 3 scenarios. They'll have a call from a client asking for a price, a call from a client describing some mild signs that should be brought to the vet, and then a call from a client asking for info only. And they'll see how that how the team responds to that. They've just launched that by itself. It used to be part of their overall front desk conversion or front desk training program, and they've got a special on that. The first 10 practices I found out this week who respond will get the calls and our assessment for free. It's usually $197. So that's United Vets Group, which you all know about, and you can contact them and ask them about that. I would say that from our experience with our clients who've done front desk training, you have a potential to double your front desk conversion to appointments, which is significant, obviously. So it is one of the five top issues we deal with, and there's a couple of solutions for you. I know I'm running a bit behind here, so just jump in with any questions. Facebook, we get tons of questions about Facebook. Facebook's widely used by practices, and it's a powerful tool if it's done properly. So first of all, should we be doing it? Like, a lot of people will be asking this question, particularly the ones who've decided not to do it, or they're sort of half doing it. And our response is, I would do it as long as you do it properly, which means you need to make sure your page is set up correctly and you have someone helping you ensure that the content that's going onto your page is generating enough interest. One thing a lot of people don't realise is if you have 100 fans, for instance, and you're putting your content on in a pretty average way, Google will probably get that content out to 10 of them, maybe 15 of them, which is not very much for that effort that someone in your clinic's doing. Whereas you take the flip side of that and you get a clinic that's operating at the top end, they'll have 1,000 fans, 1,000 plus fans. You might be getting to 20-25% of those people with every post. And then they might be getting to thousands more if they're actually spending some money on promotions. So that's chalk and cheese with how those pages are operated. And currently we don't generate any business from Facebook, but what we do, and we help practices do this, is ensure that it's linking back to the website, which is where the phone calls are made and where the business comes from. So how do I know if my team are doing a good job on Facebook? It's a really good question. Managers often, if they're not involved with Facebook, wonder whether it's working or worthwhile. And really the main determinant of that or measure of that is your fans. So 1,000 fans is your target. If you're not at 1,000 fans, I suggest you get some help to boost it, get it up there. If you're over 1,000 fans, I think you're doing a pretty good job, because that represents about half your active client base for a typical small animal practice. So what we do to help practices is we do assessments. So we'll assess how your page is going. We'll make recommendations of things you can change, and we also have a Facebook service, which is a partnership arrangement with the practice. It's on a monthly basis, and we help grow those pages to 1,000 fans or more. We do that for a lot of practices. And then lastly, content. What is it? Well, after domain names, which I said was the most important thing, content is your most important thing on your site. And content, what that means is the stuff that actually sits on the site that Google looks at once it understands your domain name and starts to understand more about you as a person, in inverted commas. So it's your business is an entity that it develops a relationship with. So most practices have basic information on them, which is why Google's able to put that website in front of people when they're in their when that person's standing in that suburb of that practice. So someone in Malvern might see the Malvern Vet Hospital website. However, you need to do more work if you want Google to put that website in front of people who are standing in the adjacent suburb, say Armidale, Caulfield South, or Caulfield I should say. I'm using a particular example in Melbourne. And the work that goes into that is often to do with the content that sits on the page. So the content needs to, without going through how you write the content needs to inform Google about who you are and what you do. So a good example, I'll give you an example of something that works and what doesn't work. If you write an article about parvovirus and stick it on your website, it's very hard for, and it's just about the technical elements of parvovirus, it's very hard for Google to look at that and say, oh, that's very relevant to someone in the suburb of the practice and the surrounding area. However, if you set it up correctly and you make the information in that blog article about parvo relevant to the local community, so you might talk about a case study in the adjacent suburb, for instance, and put some, put some other bits and pieces on the page, then when someone in your adjacent suburb is looking for parvovirus, that article will come up way ahead of anything else, because if you look at what comes up currently in your area, it's often things from, say, the AVA or an American website that's not relevant to the local community. And then the other thing is that, with regards to what we do for helping people, is that we'll actually help people write the content themselves. So you can get us to write material to put on your website. We show you how to link it between your email newsletter and your Facebook and your other media, so you get a better result. And we also help you set up a schedule so you can do it on a monthly basis. And if you can do it on a monthly basis, you will grow your traffic and grow your conversions and grow your phone calls on your website significantly. So, summary. Basically, we can handle any question you throw at us from an online marketing point of view. We're happy to take the calls. We take them every day, all day. Give us a call. Try us out. Our mission is to provide easy, done-for-you online marketing solutions. So we might provide you with some advice, or you might decide, yeah, I reckon PetPak's pretty good at this. We'll get them to provide a product or a service for us. So on that note, I'd say thanks very much for joining us. We have actually gone over time, but I love doing this process, and I really appreciate you guys joining us. And just want to check whether we have any final questions. Tony, any questions on calls? That's been answered by the look of it. All right, guys, you'll get a recording. Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions now, you can email them to me. Just reply to the email you got on the webinar. Happy to take it. And look forward to seeing you at the next conference, which probably won't be till after Christmas. But nice to see you guys, the ones I saw at AVBA and ASAVA before that. All right, guys. Thanks very much. Good night.